We are very happy to have today with us Albert Sabaté. He's the chair of the Observatory of Ethics and Artificial Intelligence at the Universitat de Girona, Girona University. Lorena Jaume Palassi, she is founder and executive director of the Ethical Tech Society, and she's a holder of the Theodor Heuss Medal for her work with Algorithm Watch. Warm welcome to Lorena. And Maria Pericas, she's a fellow and researcher at Internet Society. And all these three will introduce us to their expertise, and I'm very happy to have you here today. This, as said, this session will be recorded on YouTube, and you will be able to share the link afterwards or check back for whether it's something you wanted to know more about. Maybe there is something you didn't hear well, or you had to stop for a moment listening, so you always can get to YouTube and have a look again. And yes, so very welcome. Let's start with Albert Sabaté from the Girona University. Please, Albert, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this invitation and also for the introduction to this important tech talk. Very happy to be part of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share some slides for you to follow my presentation. I hope you can see my slides. I'm going to maximize this. I basically titled the presentation Responsible AI Through Collaboration, and you will see why. It's basically a talk that revolves around the idea of artificial intelligence. But as you can see, the first word is not artificial intelligence, but responsible AI. And the last word is collaboration. And you will see that this is very much part of what we need. And we think from the Observatory of Ethics in Artificial Intelligence that if we push towards more collaboration, it's possible that we will have a win-win situation when it comes to technology, but most importantly, to what we have through society. So now we know that all sorts of AI applications are used on a regular basis in all sorts of sectors, from entertainment to transport and all other sectors, including health and justice, to just name a few. And we know that to a great extent, it can be in one of these sort of areas of research, one that basically has to do with prediction and how we are able to use applications that allow us to predict with some certainty and with a degree of uncertainty as well, which is something that perhaps most people do not know, that when we talk about predictions, there's always a degree of uncertainty, and these can be very large. But nevertheless, we know that we can use some of these systems to do that, and that can be very useful to plan and to think about possible scenarios. We also have systems that are very much about classification things that in the first place we use based on a criteria, and that criteria is always human. It's based on what we think is best for a particular group of individuals or a particular set of things, or even a particular group of countries. So we need to think about which entities we classify, and therefore how we use some criteria to classify these things, because at the end of the day, these applications are basically revolving around the first set of criteria. So that's something that we need to know. And then finally, we have a set of systems that are very much about perception. These are very much the ones that are related to computer vision and therefore require also a degree of classification and prediction, but are very much related to what they see and what sort of information they can provide in terms of perception. This is quite important in order to understand what sort of AI systems we have today, because these sort of type of systems give us a great deal of things that are very useful, but at the same time, they also have some problems. Some of them very much have to do with data, and that's primarily because most of these systems are machine learn systems, so they use quite a lot of data to learn through machines. And therefore, we have data hazards that have to do with privacy, but also with constant surveillance of data that is required in order to train these systems. But also we have a problem, which is the constant anthropomorphization of these systems to give them capabilities, human capabilities that they don't actually have, and therefore we sort of get confused about what these systems can do and cannot do, and therefore we have to be careful with the treatment of these systems as if they were human entities, because obviously as many people who are in the areas of philosophy, but also in other areas, will tell you that they are not moral beings. They're basically machines and no more than that. And more recently, we have seen that when it comes to AI systems, there's an issue that has to do with compute. So none of these systems, and especially the front-end models, basically require a huge amount of computing. And that requirement basically means that we need a great deal of resources, resources that are related to basically water, to electricity, and therefore things that we have to think about how we manage this, not least because they are in competition to other industries. The AI industry is one industry, but there are other industries that will require the same or even more of these resources. And therefore, this competition not only is driving, in some cases, prices up, but is also certainly not beneficial to planet Earth. And we need to think about how we are going to do these sort of new machines, especially those AI systems that require a lot of computing without damaging planet Earth. Now, so we have some systems that do, in some cases, lots of things. We have these problems. But one thing that we also know that we have, and that basically has to do not with the sort of mechanical part or the issues that are sort of more specifically related to particular problems, but we have one issue, which is that there's hardly any collaboration between what we say is the AI industry and society. And therefore, we need to think about when and how we're going to collaborate to make systems that are not primarily centered on what some companies might want to do in terms of efficiency, in terms of driving some or making some more profits, but what society wants from these systems. And that's not a trivial issue. It's something that throughout history has been important in order to actually go forward in terms of trust and acceptance. So we are in a position that in some cases we can say that we are in the sort of top left quadrant of the prisoner's dilemma. I mean, we are in the bottom right quadrant of the prisoner's dilemma, in which we are not actually earning very much from these systems. There are two players, and these are basically, we can think about technological players that are basically making most of the profits. And therefore, as I said at the very beginning, we are kind of seeing how some of the technological players are making most of the profits, but the other players are not very much part of it. And basically here, I mean, society. And we need to make sure that when it comes to the new scenarios, we open them up so that the players, and particularly society, can move forward in a way that has a greater say on how these systems actually should be. Now, this is the kind of vision that we have put through the Manifesto for Advancing Trustworthy AI. And we basically propose that AI technologies need to be developed and deployed, not just for efficiency and operational gains, but also for promoting sort of very basic principles like transparency, justice, safety, responsibility, privacy, autonomy, self-determination, sustainability, and cultural diversity. Now, in order to do that, we can just basically, we could simply stay on this sort of more abstract ground and just talk about these principles without doing very much, even though this is always important to do, especially from academic terms. But we can also move forward by doing apply ethics and also move forward in order to do some changes by making sure that some of the things that we propose are embraced by different stakeholders, and particularly by industry, but also by public institutions. And so we have developed a self-assessment model that basically is to advance the ethical evaluation of AI systems and data through a checklist. And this system, in terms of global results, but also has risk metrics and also sort of very specific evaluations for particular parts of each of these principles, allow us to have, first of all, a snapshot of what we should be doing when it comes to every single one of these principles, but also allows us to move forward in terms of compliance with regulation, because one of the things that we have done with this sort of system is to actually explain some of these terms so that they also relate to the actual dispositions of the AI Act, the GDPR, and basically all sorts of pieces of legislation that are now full in force in the European Union. So we are kind of trying to move forward not only from an ethical point of view, but also from a compliant point of view. In order for kind of everybody to understand what we're doing, I kind of prepare this very short video. And then after that, I'm more than happy to answer any question that not only relate to the very beginning of the presentation, which is basically about sort of the sort of technical part of where we are in terms of the models, but also in terms of this sort of lack of collaboration, as we put it. But most importantly, how we move forward by using not only these tools, which are related to checklists, but also the kind of collaboration that is required from the top down, but also from the bottom up. So making sure that people have a greater say and therefore make systems more socially driven. So I'm going to play this, Ian, and I hope you can hear and watch this. Well, thank you very much. That was basically my presentation, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions related to, as I said, to the slides, but also to the clip, to the video. And thanks again for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Albert. And we are very happy to ask afterwards some questions about this very important topic. Now, let's switch to Lorena Jaume Palassi. Please, Lorena, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for the warm welcome and the introduction. I also brought some slides with me. I think you can see them. So I would like to approach the idea of digital rights in the context of AI, so-called AI. When we talk about AI, we like to talk of it as a piece of software, as a piece of immaterial form of an immaterial form that might affect our digital rights with regards to freedom of expression or privacy and the like. So it's very much focused on our on immaterial ideas of rights that seem to address freedoms that are less palpable than the very material side that AI actually has. When we talk about these type of systems, of technological systems, we need to, in my field, what we try to reframe is this idea of AI, because really AI is a marketing term. There is no consensus on what's the definition of artificial of intelligence. There is no consensus, and of artificial intelligence there is neither at a policy level a proper consensus, or so to say, there's always a definition in the making, and we try to redo and reframe the definitions over and over. If you look at the different definitions of AI, when you look at policy and legal texts, both at the European Union level or at national level of EU member states, if we just focus on the countries within the European Union, and in the very end, what we're talking about systems of automatizations that are actually infrastructures. And those infrastructures need mining like this type of mining. It's extensive mining. It's mining that it does not only go deep in the earth, but it goes, it requires a wide form of mining. It requires cables. It requires hyperscale data centers. So we're talking about latifundis. We're talking about hyperscale data centers that might need 100 hectares or 200 hectares and more are getting bigger. For instance, the new data center from Meta is going to be, that is right now in the making, is going to be as big as Manhattan. And we know in Spain right now there are 3 data centers that are being created by Meta as well. And the biggest one is around 90 hectares. The second one is 80 hectares. And the third one, all in the same place, is about 60 hectares. So that is also part of the infrastructure. And part of the infrastructure as well are the millions and millions of human beings that are annotating, labeling data, and correcting data, which is an unconditional part. You need to have human correctors to make sure that the quality and the status quo of technologies as GPT, as Grok, and the like keep the same status quo with regards to its quality. I'm not talking about bettering the quality. I'm simply talking about maintaining the status quo. It already requires millions of humans correcting, and the very traumatizing, very poor conditions with regards to payments, with regards to working conditions. It also requires a lot of fundamental resources like water and electricity, according to those 2 last reports that are quite conservative with their approaches. We are calculating that most hyperscale data centers, or the overall necessity of energy until 2030, will be 4-fold. So we will require 4 times more energy that is already being required now. And the same goes for water. We see that both requests or need for water and electricity is growing exponentially for the next decades. And what we see is that those data centers, of course, because of that, are putting or situating themselves in places that are strategically relevant, but that also compete with many other things that we'll address now. So you see a map of the nuclear power plants in Spain. As many of you might know, the most data centers in Spain are around the area of Madrid, which is around this area here. And then new data centers are being erected here. So as you see, those new data centers are in close vicinity to nuclear power plants. And those data centers as well are also in areas that are under water stress. Actually, according to the last report of the Ministry of Ecological Transition from Spain, over 75% of the Spanish territory is in danger of desertification. So the same looks for the UK. We are seeing also those here as the water stress zones of the UK. This here is a map of the planned data centers for the next years. So actually very much in the dry or water stressed areas of the UK. And if you look at the nuclear power stations that are either confirmed or in the making, are also very close to those locations where data centers are either already existing or in the making. So what we see is that there is a concentration with regards to the material infrastructure of automation systems that is going precisely to zones of conflict. It's going to zones where water is scarce, where this water scarcity is going to create conflicts or is already creating conflicts with the population and with the needs of other infrastructures, like the infrastructures such as hospitals and schools that also need access both to electricity and water. And we already have a lot of articles all around the world talking about this correlation between conflict because of water or electricity, but also conflict because of health issues that are clearly correlated with data center pollution. So health issues with regards to respiratory chronic diseases or heart attacks or cardiac diseases. And what we see is that the discussion around all these issues is either concentrated on the immaterial side of the rights and fundamental protections of human beings, or is and is also very much concentrated on individual rights. The point with digital rights is that it addresses individual rights. But the thing with environmental issues, the thing with these type of infrastructures of scale is that they do not care about individuals. They are not focused on individuals. They are interested in scaling. They are interested in addressing collectives. They are interested in systematically organizing and structuring societies. And what that means when we try to respond to make sure that our societies are protected with individual rights, what we do with that is like trying to address a system that is about organizing the forest by trying to give each tree protection. But we know that forests are more than the sum of its trees, and we know that societies are more than the sum of its individuals. So, of course, individual rights are important, and of course, it is a dimension that needs addressing when we talk about the usage of AI, but discrimination issues, also the other issues that I have described, health impact issues, environmental issues, also the way how these infrastructures enter into competition and concur with the necessities of other infrastructures that are important to our society, such as health infrastructures and educational infrastructures, demand that we complement the idea of digital rights with rights that go beyond the individual scope and addresses collective issues. One of the things that we in the European Union have is a very sophisticated and developed law culture. And this law culture, through colonialism, has expanded all over the world. So we see that that our culture influences South America and Africa and Asia. But our culture is methodologically individualistic. And one thing that we could learn from other cultures, actually, and we are not listening enough, is their approach, because it's not the same to warrant access to water to each individual than to have a right for the river and to protect the river. It's a different approach, and it has a different impact and different legal consequences. So to address this, and to address the collective impact of computational infrastructures, we might need, apart from digital rights at this individual scale level, a more collective approach that we might perhaps learn from other places of the world that we should very much need to listen to, and we're not listening right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lorena. And we're a bit over the time, but I think it was really worth it to share these inputs from your side. And now I would like to hand over swiftly to Maria Pericas. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I also have a presentation that I'll share with you now. There we go. So, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be part of the Catalonia Tech Talks, and thanks to the delegation for the invitation. So, today's topic is digital rights in times of AI. And digital rights are the extension of citizens' rights to the digital environment. And those include some of the topics we have already been discussing: privacy, data protection, control, autonomy, and so on. However, the rise of AI in social media raises urgent questions about how to protect those digital rights, since it reshapes and transforms the way that content is created and consumed. And this is a topic we're going to be discussing today. So in the next couple of minutes, I'll focus on what we are already witnessing and also what can be done about it. These insights come from conversations I've had with influencers from a previous project I was working on. So yeah, basically getting into the topic. When talking about AI in social media, I think it's difficult to say that there's a black and white. So basically, a spectrum would be a more realistic way to approach this. So when talking about AI in social media, we have used the categorization in 4 different categories. And we're first talking about the use of AI tools by human creators. What does this mean? Basically, we know that AI has been transforming the working environment in many sectors, and content creation is not an exception. Why or how is AI being used by creators in the social media environment? There's many ways, either from the basic, from drafting emails or getting ideas for content, to better understanding their audiences, or even getting legal advice from a contract they're about to sign, or yeah, basically everything you can think of. Here, probably we can say that is the level with the least risks when talking about digital rights, but this is very soon gonna change. Because the second level of AI technologies in social media, we find it through AI avatars or like doppelgangers that basically try to sound like you. And you may ask yourselves, but what is that? So basically an AI avatar is a digital extension of yourself. So it's a representation that a persona, could be me, could be you, could be a creator, creates, and then it customizes it to make it sound like them. And here I'd like to present this example. So this Meta screenshot that I have here is from their recent Meta AI Studio. It was released last year in the US, and now it's also available in Europe. This is something I've done by myself, so I created very fast my own artificial intelligence of myself. In this case, is of course fixing and music and so on. So I gave clear instructions on what she should say. For example, here it's pointed out that she likes music and that she's always up for fun and adventure. So then, following these instructions, there's this chatbot also available for the creators and for the users, that they can actually ask things or ask questions or have a conversation with the person, or aka the doppelganger or this digital extension. And for example, I asked, so who's your favorite singer? And it answers, it's Adele, etc., based on the previous information I added. If you're thinking about this for bigger creators, this can actually be a huge time saver, because like that, the followers can have this direct connection with them, with the content creator. They can ask more, maybe easier questions or things that have already been said in the profile. They just ask, hey, influencer X, what's your favorite color? Or is there a restaurant you can recommend to me? And then there's like the response. However, this brings serious concerns regarding authenticity, or this genuine human connection or human interaction that we used to see, or that we still see in social media. Like, what does it mean for the user? What does it mean for the creator? And as well, big questions on transparency and control. In the case of the Meta AI Studio, Meta promises full visibility on into what your AI says, and it's also labeled as such. However, I think we're going to see in the next period of time, or we're going to find out the associated risks with it. The next category is the so-called AI avatars. So these are people-controlled creators or influencers that are synthetic, but somehow appear realistic. They have realistic appearances, they have their own personality and their own hobbies. But they are controlled by a person or a group of people that create the images, write the captions, etc. And here I'd like to point out the example of Aitana. She's an influencer from Barcelona, and she likes fitness, she likes video games. She's an influencer. I mean, she's an influencer as a real one that you can find also on your feed. However, here it's also important to mention how lucrative this business is, because, for example, when you're having, I don't know, for example, think of a shooting with a model, you need to pay for a makeup artist, for a hair art styler. They have a busy schedule. Sometimes they are tired, but with an AI influencer, it opens a whole new world of possibilities. However, once again, we're seeing the issues of authenticity. First of all, imagine that they're selling a product that they cannot even use. Also, there's the issue of those avatars taking the work of other real people. And also there's a problem or the issue of not disclosing if if the account is AI generated or not. I mean, here we can say that Aitana is, but what if others aren't? And the last step of it is are the so-called AI agents. Here it's important to point out that they do not fully exist yet, but I think many researchers agree that it's something we're gonna witness in the future, in the near future. And basically these AI agents operate with minimal oversight. This would mean that basically they will have some type of human input at the very beginning, like for example, create a persona that has to promote a sustainable lifestyle. And then this AI agent would start posting videos, posting content, would learn from everything around, would evolve on their own. For example, if they see that a certain post has more engagement than another, they might continue with those type of postings. So yeah, let's see. I'm very curious to see how this goes on. Here, also one of the, probably this is the one that has more associated risk with it because of the challenges that can arise from it. So also researchers point out what is going to happen with accountability. What if the certain account starts spreading disinformation or hate speech? Again, accountability is going to be key here. So just to close, the last slide. So future outlook. I mean, we're already witnessing a rise of AI-generated content in our social media. And the trend looks like it's only gonna continue growing. Also, this environment is bringing us an evolution of the parasocial relationships that we're having with the online content creators. And it also raises the question about digital identity. The question on what to do about it. I think for example, talking about the European Union, there's already there guidelines or different recommendations or different laws on how to approach issues that are tied to this. For example, on transparency, there's the EU Digital Services Act or the DSA that could be used to make effective the labeling of AI created content. On data protection, there's the GDPR or the General Data Protection Regulation that could have a specific provision on social media. Also, there's ethic guidelines for trustworthy AI that could also include a social media component. And also more could be done on media literacy to focus on AI awareness and have more resilient societies and able to discern what is AI generated and what's not. I think the important conclusion here is that there's no need to reinvent the wheel, just adapt to the current challenges that we're witnessing and also the ones that are coming very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. So now is the time to open up the rounds if you want to put on your videos, the screens, so everybody knows who's in the room. And we would happily accept questions from the audience and maybe from the YouTube channel, if that's possible. Myself, I could already say that I have a lot of new inputs as a takeaway from your explanations, and one thing that I'm wondering is whether we in the future we will have two types of society, one that's engaged online and the other one that's completely off the grid, because one idea that comes up in listening to you is that we are always talking about the digital sphere. Lorena has pointed out that there are very real physical impact on behalf of resources, water management, energy management, and human resources as well, and all the psychological impact that could derive from working in that field. And Albert has pointed out that there is need for more civil society engagement in what AI needs to be, except what businesses are heading for. And so I think we have a very broad overview after your inputs. If you have questions from the audience, please raise your hands and you can start. You can open your videos as well from the audience if you want to read too. So, but at the moment, there's no question from the public. I encourage you to ask your questions because this is a very high-level panel, and I think you will have few opportunities to engage with such qualified speakers. Yeah, maybe there would one question I would advance from my side is we are, Lorena, you have mentioned the colonial and Eurocentric perspective. We are maybe in a good environment when we are relatively protected from the threats or the impact that new developments would have without regulation. Other places don't have. You three could give a quick answer on how does protective or protective politics can help the individual and the collective to maintain a well-balanced life in that sense, or the defense of their rights. What do you think? Maybe Albert, would you start?
Yes, absolutely. These are very good points. I have to say that I very much liked both presentations, and certainly Lorena's presentation really points at an issue that we should be discussing more frequently, because it really points to the kind of source of some of the problems that we see today in terms of geopolitics. When we talk about AI systems, we talk about an industry, and it's just an industry that requires materials, that requires things. And therefore, we need to have a say on how we tackle this particular issue, not least because we have agreed on sustainability agendas, and therefore we have to bear that in mind, but also because we have to revise these agendas in line with the new environment. So our rights are not just simply defended in a way that we just think about what has happened in the past. We need to think. We need this foresight. We need to see what is going on. And certainly, some of these companies are playing a zero-sum game that is not particularly beneficial for everybody. So they have to think about that we are not just simply citizens. We are also buying their products, and we might actually punish some of these companies if they don't do what we expect from them. So it's very likely that we will see more people clearly aware of what is going on. But also, we also have to point out that at the present moment, we can foresee at least three bubbles that many sort of individuals are already seeing. One that basically has to do with companies that are have overvaluations, and part of this overvaluation is because of these sort of closed circuit that they have. And if this closed circuit doesn't benefit society will basically will say, well, what about these products being more pro society, more pro rights, more pro the sort of things that we expect to go forward. But also there's this element about the issue that Lorena has talked about. Why do we really need these massive data centers when the actual solution is a chatbot that is not half intelligent? You know what I mean? So do we really need this scale of computing for very mediocre systems? Probably not. And then finally, I think we have to think about another bubble, which is this sort of constant manufacturing of hype in terms of these interactions that we saw with Maria. We're talking about systems that are not intelligent. So they basically provide outcomes that in some cases are very good in terms of prediction, in terms of classification, and in terms of perception, but they are not intelligent. We are intelligent, and we assess whether or not their outcomes are good enough. So there's always there has to be a human in the loop. So that basically means that we need to remind the companies that we are working for them. And that's not a small point. I think we need to protect also those rights, because we have a huge amount of people working for AI industries, and in many cases, low paid with very poor conditions and so on and so forth. But I don't want to take more of this time, but I think we need to certainly discuss these things openly.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And so there's this old issue of social impact of businesses, and which is nothing new and has happened in the Industrial Revolution, and there has been like civic movements in every point, and like new business ways of making business, and that's at the end of the day a new way of making business. But in fact, it needs what Maria said, literacy we're all a bit confused about what's going on, but at one point, everybody will understand that it needs literacy, it needs understanding of how these issues work, and that's also a reason why we're doing this type of tech talks. Lorena, what's your opinion on that?
With the question of literacy, I think we need sort of literacy not only with regards to the population, but also with regards to the engineers and the companies making this, because they are making claims that are outrageously exaggerated about systems being able to do something intelligent or something independently in a human anthropomorphized way, which is simply not true. It sort of shows their lack of understanding what human intelligence means, and it sort of shows its lack of understanding of specific disciplines that touch with or have to do with the systems they are implementing. Because what I think right now is quite dangerous is the fact that we're seeing a conglomeration of power in big tech that is claiming to be a perfect infrastructure for small and medium enterprises, as an infrastructure for them to tap on, so that they can create added value for smaller so to say, for smaller companies, and make dependency make these companies dependent. They also claim that they are able to provide infrastructure for public interest, and this is what we're seeing a lot. We're seeing a lot of instances where Microsoft and the like are stating in their strategies, we want to create public interest infrastructures, and this is why they get into negotiations with governments. This is why we see that, for instance, specific hyperscale data centers are, as a negotiation with the local governments, go hand in hand with specific systems that are going to be introduced in the health sector or in the social security sector, for instance. And these type of deals or negotiations end with having those projects being declared as public interest projects, which in the very end means that because they are public interest, they get special protections. And this means also special access to water. This also means special access to electricity, on the back or on the cost of other people that need to get their water rationated because they can't, because there's not enough water for all. And with this sort of conflation of these companies telling we are the new infrastructure for society, and we can be both for the private sector an interesting thing, and we can also be a public interest tool. We are sort of thinking that if we just make market regulation, because let's not forget all the regulation within the European Union, the DSA, the AI Act, the GDPR, all these pieces of regulation are market regulation. This is market regulation. This is not human rights regulation. This is not digital rights regulation with regards to protection of human beings. It's different. It's a different technique. It's a different interest that puts the market as the main focus, thinking that when we have a good market, then there might be a spillover effect for our human rights. But that does not put human rights in the middle. And I think that we've come to a point where we do very much have to put those human rights in the middle, because we see that we're coming at a point of human inflection where biases are happening, discrimination is happening, and where we need to, as Albert was saying, we need to decide, and as you were saying, Marie, we've seen this before with the Industrial Revolution. So it's not that much about do we need these technologies, but it is more about what type of world and economy and human rights do we want to have. And based on that, what type of technologies do we need? In many cases, it will not be AI, it will be something else, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. And Maria, do you have like an outlook on that as well?
Yeah, I have actually, I think, the most pessimistic outlook, because what I'm seeing is that there's so many civil society organizations, so many different groups pointing out the environmental impact of AI, all the risks associated with it. But I don't know, I'm just not seeing this turning point to happen any point soon of holding this big tech accountable, even though, again, all the research that has been done to prove it. And even also taking into account that, for example, everything used to power AI is being taken from data from users that post their own, that they make their posts online. So, for example, a couple of months ago, in case you didn't disable that you didn't want Meta to take your content to boost their AI, it means that it's already lost. So, for example, like there's this loop of things that makes you think, okay, when is this moment gonna arrive? And I really hope it's very much sooner than later.
Yes, I understand your point. And I'm very happy to have such a diverse panel, because we have like a bit of a point of view from each angle. Is there something we haven't discussed? And we have 3 more minutes for our webinar. Is there something you want to leave stated here?
If I may, I think that we cannot be complacent. We have to make sure that there is collaboration, of course, as I mentioned in my slides. There has to be, but perhaps there won't be this sort of collaboration across the Atlantic that we would expect. That's something that is changing very rapidly, and we see that not only between European and American companies, but we see that between customers of American companies that are already kind of fed up with how some of these American companies are developing their products. So my take, and I talk to lots of stakeholders, is that we need to make sure that Europe has a more prominent stance when it comes to developing technology in a very different way as we are doing at the moment. It's not just about investing lots of money. This is just one part of the story. It's about how we invest our money, and we really need to make sure that everyone is involved, because technology affects everybody. And if we don't do that, there will be more losers than we actually see now, because we see somehow a future that will certainly have lots of different types of technologies, but we cannot afford to have this sort of future in which dystopia is more prevalent than utopia. But we need to do more.
Yeah, so we have this European approach right now in the on the panel. We haven't, it wasn't the title, but in the end, it's well in every debate here in Europe that Europe needs to stand up to its own role and to its own potential, and maybe we can keep this as a closing word. And thank you so much for you. There was no question from the audience, but that means either your speeches were very clear, or there's so much food for thought that everybody is like thinking right now intensively. Thank you very much. I hope you all keep in touch, because I think the dialogue is very important. And it was a pleasure to having you. Thank you for having you here today. It's a great pleasure and very inspiring. So have a nice day, and you can watch, as I said in the beginning, watch the video later on YouTube, and we will post the link in our social networks. And as we said, we were very critical about social networks right now, but we are using them as well. So we keep you posted. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Goodbye.